After acquiring part ownership of a Chinese electric car company, Stellantis are now saying, you know what, guys? These tariffs on Chinese EVs, they are a terrible idea. Don't do this. This is going to kill the European car. Hang on a minute. Kill the European car industry. Isn't that what cheap Chinese EVs were meant to do? Well, that's what he was saying before Stellantis went and bought a percentage of Leap Motor. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to see you. The boss of Stellantis, Carlos Tavares, says tariffs on Chinese EVs will discourage Western car makers from restructuring to better rival Chinese competitors. What does he mean by restructuring? What does that mean? Like the Volkswagen Group, who own about 20 brands, they need to join up with Stellantis. BMW, Mercedes, they need to join up together to take on these Chinese competition, their rivals. I don't know. He says that Chinese OEMs have a 30% cost advantage over their Western rivals. In other words, they can make EVs 30% cheaper. Guys, I don't believe that for a second. I think that's generally incorrect. I believe Chinese companies are manufacturing EVs at a lower price than what he's saying. I really don't think there's a 30% advantage. Think about the cost of hiring staff in Germany, for example, to make a BMW vehicle or a Volkswagen vehicle. I mean, if there's only a 30% increase, is it really worth it for Chinese automakers to ship cars from China to Europe? I don't think so, because you got to pay the shipping costs are pretty significant now to ship a car. They're pretty significant. There's port costs. There's all kinds of fees involved with cleaning the cars. That means commercial cleaning for bugs and all that kind of stuff. I think the cost advantage is closer to 50%. However, he says Chinese car makers will soon have 10% share of all car sales in Europe. Now, some experts are saying it's eventually going to hit 100%. I don't believe that'll happen, but who knows? Stellantis chief executive Carlos Tavares has described tariffs against Chinese electric vehicles as a major trap, and he says the European car industry is in a Darwinian period. Well, what does he mean by a Darwinian period? Well, clearly he means that, things are going to change. What happens? Survival of the fittest, right? What happens with survival of the fittest? Well, some people die. The weakest of us, they die. Can't run fast enough to outrun a bear? Well, just make sure you can outrun that other person next to you. And if they're slower than you, they're going to get eaten. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of car manufacturers. There's too many. And when I say there's too many, I mean, think about it. The 91 manufacturers of EVs in China, they are rivals for Stellantis, for Ford, for General Motors. They are rivals. Hot on the heels of the US announcing new tariffs of 102.5% on EVs imported from China, and the EU potentially doing something similar, Tavares said that tariffs will not encourage Western car makers to restructure in order to meet the challenges posed by Chinese manufacturers. Tariffs are a major trap for the countries that go on that path, he said. When you fight against the competition to absorb 30% of cost competitiveness edge in favor of the Chinese, there are social consequences. But the governments of Europe, they don't want to face that reality right now. Now, I believe that the reason Tavares is moaning about this, he moans all the time. The guy loves moaning. I believe the reason he's doing this is because he knows Chinese competitors like BYD are building factories in Europe where they will simply ship all of their Chinese parts. Basically, that they'll build the cars in China, ship them in parts to Europe, to, for example, BYD's car factory that they have now built in Hungary, and they'll just assemble them there and sell them at a much lower price than what Carlos and Stellantis can manufacture vehicles in Europe for. Now, Carlos and Stellantis, they would have to do something similar, and I don't believe they're going to do that. That's what he can see in the future. I think Chinese companies building factories in Europe, which they are, and then simply basically assembling the vehicles in Europe, and there's no way that Stellantis or European car manufacturers can compete with that. We're not talking about a Darwinian period. We are in it, he said. This is not going to be easy for the dealers. It's not going to be easy for the suppliers. It's not going to be easy for the OEMs. As we know in Europe, everybody is talking about change as long as change is for somebody else. So Stellantis believe the Chinese rivals are on track to sell 1.5 million vehicles in Europe, taking 10% share of the market. He says this: if we let the share of the Chinese OEMs grow, then it's obvious that you are going to create an overcapacity unless you fight against that competition. Now, Carlos is, well, very against tariffs at all. And he used to be very against Chinese EVs. Well, that was until the company purchased a percentage of a Chinese EV manufacturer. By the way, Leapmotor is a pretty good EV brand, and they make EVs at a staggering low price. Some of the best value electric cars you can purchase. So good decision by Stellantis. Guys, what do you think about these claims from Stellantis? What do you think about the 30% cost advantage? Do you think it's 30%? Could it be more than that? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Thanks for watching.